welcome to another review. Today I'm reviewing the Graveyard Queen series by Amanda Stevens. Now, so far or altogether there are 3 novels and there's one prequel called The Abandoned. And originally I thought, it was just 3 novels, trilogy. But then I read a comment in someone else's review and they mentioned, oh, they can't wait for the 4th book and they're looking forward to seeing what happens next. But I looked it up and I could not find any information about a 4th book. And I mean, after reading the final 3rd book, I don't think there has to be a 4th one. Yes, not every little thing was answered, but and we still kind of have questions, but there doesn't have to be a 4th one. So I'm not 100% sure whether it's just a 3-part series, but anyway, it's about a woman, she's 27, called Amelia, and she is a taphophile. I think I'm pronouncing that right. That just means she's kind of like a fan or a lover of graveyards. So yes, you learn something new every day when you're reading. And she's a graveyard restorer, so she will restore neglected or very, very old graveyards. Amelia, she also happens to see ghosts. So ever since she was 9 years old, she's been able to see ghosts, and her father taught her these 4 rules, which basically means she cannot acknowledge the ghosts, because if they know she can see them, they won't leave her alone. And all ghosts want is to kind of take a living person's warmth and life force. And yeah, so her whole life she's just learned to kind of ignore the ghosts around her. And it's not like in the Ghost Whisperer where she can talk to the ghosts. Like, most of the time they're just really earthy, haunting spirits who can't speak, and who mostly kind of just stand there and point and things. So yeah, it's a lot more creepy than your typical medium who sits down and has a chat with a ghost who just looks human. Yeah, so it's not just ghosts as well. There's like this otherworldly entity of evil present as well throughout the books that it's kind of unexplainable. Like, it's not just your typical ghost haunting. There's other little things too. Yeah, and then Amelia meets a cop who is haunted, so there's ghosts following him, and she's been told as well her whole life to stay away from people who are haunted, and she can't stay away from this cop. So that's kind of the main premise. And then over the 3 books she tries to help him and solve some murders, and there's mysteries to solve. So that's kind of like the main plot of the series. So at times, mostly the first half, I found this series very slow moving, overly descriptive, with like romanticism from some cheesy romance novel. And then at other times, mostly the second half of the book, I would find them really interesting and compelling, beautifully haunting and super creepy. Like, a couple of times I was reading it in bed and everything was just so quiet, and like you're just reading a scene with this creepy ghost like staring at her. It felt really creepy, and I never get scared by books ever. But I just found that quite scary, a couple of scenes in there. So the author does a great job that way. And everything's quite subtle. It's not over the top, trying to scare you with ghosts. So yeah, it's really strange, because like, you'd be reading it, you're like, yeah, nothing's really happening. It's very, very slow moving, slow pace. And then bam, the author would get you with some big twist or revelation, and you're captivated and you don't want to put the book down. It was so strange. So yeah, I mean, it's a positive that by the end the author really grabs your attention, and there are some great twists and secret reveals, but it just takes a while to get there. I wasn't crazy about the main love interest, but he did get better throughout the books. And the second book was so different to the first and third. It was like it took a break and went somewhere else. But it was, it was still good. So overall, I found this series good and very readable, and easy to read and interesting. Like, the author, she really did her research as well into graveyards and all the kind of history associated with them. But so yeah, it's a very quiet series. Like, there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of romance, but there's lots of mystery. I'd recommend it because it's just, you know, it's something new, and it's very creepy, and yeah, there's something interesting in there, and there will be moments where you don't want to put the book down. So for that reason, yeah, I would recommend it. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler review. So if you haven't read this series before, I suggest you switch off now. Okay, when I first heard, you know, about the book and read about Devlin and him being haunted by his, you know, dead wife and daughter, I was like, oh, this isn't a great love interest. The guy who's obsessed with his past wife and haunted by her. You kind of want the love interest to be just obsessed, not obsessed, but into the protagonist. So at first I wasn't crazy about that idea, and then again, you know, Thane from the second book, he was really nice, but then he was kind of haunted as well by his ex. So yeah, so I wasn't crazy about Devlin, and as well I felt, yeah, he was one of those really, really mysterious, quiet characters, but he didn't show enough emotion. You need some little crack. And I really like the scenes where, you know, she, Emilia was down in the, you know, she fell through that tomb or mausoleum, and they were underground, and he was really worried about it, and he jumped down to her. Like, that was a little bit of emotion, like, you know, his protectiveness, but we didn't see enough of it, I don't think. And we did see it then in the third book a bit more, so that was, it was nice then. I'm really glad I knew Devlin wasn't going to be in the whole second book before I read it, because if I was reading it and I didn't know, I would have just been waiting for him the whole time, and then really disappointed when he wasn't in it at the end. So yeah, I thought the second book, while the whole revelations about Emilia's birth and background and family was fascinating, I do think it was a big detour from the main story started in the first book, and especially with no Devlin or anything. So yeah, I do think the author could have worked in the, you know, the secondary characters better into her mysteries, but what can you do? I do think as well, even though the books are quite slow moving, that sometimes the author would gloss over certain scenes really quickly. Kind of like the action scenes or the love scenes, the scenes that you want to read a bit more about. In particular, you know, remember the end of the first book where she was kidnapped by the guy who turned out to be the murderer, I can't remember his name, and, you know, she was taken on the ground. That went really quickly, and where her arm was cut, yeah, it just kind of snapped in the next scene. One of the things I hated was the descriptions of Emilia's pull or connection to Devlin at the beginning. Like, I was like, come on. It was just, it felt like it was coming out of some cheesy romantic novel. Like, oh, my heart pounded every time I saw him. There was just this deep pull, I couldn't stay away from him. Like, yeah, I wasn't crazy with those descriptions, but then I was like, maybe there is a logical, not illogical, maybe there's a real reason why there is this pull. Maybe he's wearing some, like, amulet that draws her to him, or something because of the ghost, I don't know. But no, there was no connection, or there was no explanation. So that was kind of a little bit disappointing. Actually, there's a few things that we never got really explanations for by the very end. Who sent those texts? I know she kind of assumed it was Robert. I remember her grandfather said Harper won't be released until you give birth to another heir. Like, are we ever going to, if there's a fourth book, are we ever going to hear a bit more about that? Yeah, I really want to know for definite if there is a fourth book. Like, I'm about 80% sure there won't be, but I don't know. If anyone else out there knows, please let me know. The whole thing with Darius in the third book was a bit strange, because again, we didn't really get proper explanations for his powers, and maybe we're just not meant to know everything. I don't know, maybe that's just the author's way. As well, I wish we kind of got more information about Emilia's dad. I loved their little flashback at the very beginning where she first saw ghosts and the interaction to her dad then. Yeah, overall, I mean, it wasn't a perfect series, but the author did manage to do some great things and get you interested. And yeah, I mean, it was a bit new for me to read, so I enjoyed it overall. So that's my review on the Graveyard Queen series, and thank you very much for watching.